Lydia, could we talk a little bit about translation? Because I think there are still people who think of the conductor as a kind of human metronome.
Well, yeah, that's partly true.
Yeah,
but the end of keeping time, it's no small thing.
But I suspect there's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah, well, I would hope so, yes. But time is the thing. Time is the essential piece of interpretation. You cannot start without me. See, I start the clock. Now, my left hand, it shapes, but my right hand, the second hand, marks time and moves it forward. However, unlike a clock, sometimes my second hand stops, which means that time stops. Now, the illusion is that, like you, I'm responding to the orchestra in real time, making the decision about the right moment to restart the thing or reset it or throw time out the window altogether. The reality is that right from the very beginning, I know precisely what time it is and the exact moment that you and I will arrive at our destination together. You know, the only real discovery for me is in rehearsal. It's never in performance.
Hard question, I know, but if you could define one thing that Bernstein gave you, what would it be?
Kavanagh. Yeah, it's the Hebrew word for attention to meaning or intent. You know, what are the composer's priorities and what are yours, and how do they complement one another? Right,
Kavanaugh. I think that's a word that will have slightly different meaning for many in our audience.
Well, yes, I imagine so.
Am I right in thinking that the conductor was not always an onstage presence in classical music?
No, that's right.
I think I read someplace that it actually was the first violin for a long time.
Yes, the first violinist, whether they had any interest or skill in it or not.
Well, when did that change, and who changed it?
With the French composer Jean-Baptiste Lully, who reportedly used a rather enormous, rather pointy staff to pound the tempi into the floor. It's not something I imagine the players particularly appreciated. Anyway, that technique ended during a performance when Lully accidentally stabbed himself in the foot with the thing and died. Yeah, of gangrene. But anyway. Anyway, but the conductor really becomes essential as the ensembles get bigger. And once again, we go back to Beethoven. Ba-ba-ba-bum, ba-ba-ba-bum. Now that doesn't start with the eighth note. The downbeat, ba-ba-ba, it's silent, right? So someone had to start that clock. Someone had to plant their flag in the sand and say, follow me, you know? And when that someone was Lenny, the orchestra was led on the most extraordinary tour of pleasures, because he knew the music, Mahler especially, as well or better than anyone. And he would often play with the form, because he wanted an orchestra to feel that they had never seen, let alone heard or performed any of that music. So he would do radical things, like disregarding the tempo primo or ending this phrase molto ritardando, even though it had no such marking.
Was he over-egging it?
Oh, no, not at all. He celebrated the joy of his discovery.
You told us a moment ago that your discovery takes place in rehearsal. When will that process begin again for you?
We start on Monday.
Immediately.
With this one, it really is about trying to read the tea leaves of Mahler's intention. I mean, we know a great deal about this with his other symphonies. You know, he was so inspired by the poetry of Rückert that for years he didn't set another author to music, but all of this changes with the five. The five is a mystery. And the only clue he leaves us is on the cover of the manuscript itself. Yes, the dedication to his new wife, Alma. So if you're going to partner with Mahler on his Fifth Symphony, the first thing you must do is try to understand that very complex marriage.
And would you say that you have a different interpretation of that marriage than Bernstein did?
You mentioned my ethnographic fieldwork in the Amazon. Well, Adam, the Shipibo Kanibo only receive an Icaro or song if the singer is there, right, on the same side of the spirit that created it. And in that way, the past and the present converge. It's the flip sides of the same cosmic coin. That definition of fidelity makes sense to me. But Lenny, he believed in teshuvah, the Talmudic power to reach back into time and transform the significance of one's past deeds. So when he played the Adagietto at Robert Kennedy's funeral, it ran for 12 minutes. He treated it as a mass.
Yeah, right.
And you know, if you listen to a recording of it, you will no doubt feel the tragedy and the pathos. And of course, that interpretation was very true for Mahler later in life, after the professional bottom dropped out and Alma had left him for Gropius. But as I said before, we are dealing with time. And this piece was not born into aching tragedy. It was born into young love.
And so you chose?
Love.
Right, but precisely how long?
7 minutes.